In fact, Google has been working on serverless for more than a decade. 10 years ago, almost exactly, it was in April, I guess, we launched App Engine, the very first platform as a service, and the very first Google Cloud, or sorry, one of the first platforms as a service, and the very first Google Cloud product. Since that time, over the last 10 years, we've continued to innovate, providing a number of additional serverless solutions. And today, we were very happy to announce the general availability of Cloud Functions. That's super exciting. But there's so much more to serverless. This is just a journey that's still beginning. And I'd like to unpack a little bit what the promise of serverless really is. What do we see it as? Now, at Google, we like to joke that serverless is about no servers. And obviously, there are still servers running in data centers somewhere. But it's about making sure that developers don't have to be concerned with what those servers are, what that infrastructure that underlies your application really is. If you want to, bring a container, deploy a function, or just an application, you should be able to do that regardless of sort of what the underlying platform is that it will run on. It also means being idiomatic, which is another Googleism, I think, which is really to say that it's native to you as a developer. It's meeting the developers where they are. So if you're a Go developer, you should just be able to be a Go developer. You shouldn't have to learn a bunch of quirks in a system. If you want to be a Node.js developer, just be a Node.js developer. Don't worry about how to integrate with the platform. And then the third promise is about being event-driven. Today, if you want to wire up a bunch of different systems, you typically end up hard-coding those systems together, putting all of that logic into your code, instead of being able to declaratively bind things through an eventing framework. And we at Google see one more promise here, which is that serverless really should be keeping you free of vendor lock-in. By adopting the promise of serverless, you should be able to take your code and run it wherever you feel most appropriate. If that's in an on-premises data center, a third-party data center, or in the cloud, you shouldn't have to choose. You should be able to keep using the framework that you're using. So Kubernetes and serverless, if you think about it, are kind of two sides of the same pursuit. Two things that go great together, like chocolate and peanut butter. Unless you happen to be allergic to chocolate or peanut butter, and then it's absolutely nothing like that. But what Kubernetes does for the operator, hiding away all of the sort of complexities of the underlying infrastructure that you're running on and allowing the smooth paved surface, serverless does for developers, allowing them to not be concerned about the platform they're running on and just focus on the core value of the code that matters. And in fact, we at Google believe in this so strongly that this is the future of the way that compute should be run, that this morning we were happy to announce the GKE serverless add-on, which brings all of the wonderful operator friendliness of Kubernetes and all of the developer friendliness of serverless together into our Google Cloud platform. So the benefits of using the serverless add-on. Number one, it's easy to start deploying with less code. Today, if you want to deploy an application on Kubernetes, you have to deal with a bunch of configuration. You have to write all of that and check it in. The serverless add-on makes this much, much simpler. And I'll show you how in a little bit. It also makes it easy to run a serverless-style workload, being able to go from source all the way to a deployed container with a URL in minutes. It automatically deals with all the network programming, all of the provisioning ingress, and all of the different layers inside Kubernetes that you used to have to deal with before. And it helps auto-scaling. And you might be telling yourself, hey, Kubernetes already auto-scales. Why is he talking about this in context of the serverless add-on? And you're right, Kubernetes does scale. But the serverless add-on makes it scale better. And it makes it scale in a way that Kubernetes doesn't today. We can actually scale your workload all the way down to 0, which lets an operator in your company pack more applications into the same cluster resources and have everything continue to run really well.
So as we were building the serverless add-on for GKE and working with customers like T-Mobile, we had the opportunity to survey the space, and we realized that the marriage of serverless and Kubernetes is attracting a lot of interest. And rather than shy away from that, we saw it as a perfect opportunity to bring everybody together to collaborate. And that's what we're going to talk about now. I'm very pleased to introduce today Knative, which provides the building blocks for running serverless workloads on Kubernetes. Thank you. And what I'm going to show you should look familiar because Ryan just showed it to you in the demo. This is real technology that we're deploying into our real clusters and supporting. And we believe that's the right way to approach an open source problem. But you don't do it alone. Doing this right requires an ecosystem. And we are very proud to have worked with some of the biggest and leading names in cloud, like Pivotal and SAP and Red Hat and IBM, to codify the commonalities for running serverless on Kubernetes. And we're going to hear from some of them today. Before I get started, though, I want to sort of show you the landscape and show you where in the overall stack we think that Knative fits in. So we start first with Kubernetes, the universal platform. It's ubiquitous. It runs everywhere. We take that for granted, and that's what allows us to do this, which is build a layer of building blocks, these primitive components for essential operations for running serverless workloads on top of Kubernetes. We're starting with build and serving and eventing, but this is just the beginning, and we expect it to grow from here. In fact, I've heard this referred to as the standard library for running serverless on Kubernetes, and I think I'm OK with that analogy. And here we see the type of products that we envision being built on top of Knative. Google is sharing a few of those with the world today. Earlier today, we learned about SAP's Schema, Pivotal's function service, and we'll talk about those now. Again, I can't emphasize enough, so I added a whole nother slide just to say it. This is not a science fair project. This is not a 20% open source project that we're shipping. Rather, it's Google products that we are taking the open source out of and giving away. And we're not doing it alone. Earlier today, SAP announced SAP Schema, which is based on Knative serverless components. And they say that Knative will further enable SAP to accelerate enterprise serverless and event-based applications. SAP has been an incredible development partner throughout, and I'm really excited about what's going on with Schema. They're around this week at the SAP booth, and I hope that everybody gets a chance to stop by and see what we're doing with Schema. And IBM Cloud is investing in Knative. IBM, of course, has extensive background and experience running serverless workloads at scale with OpenWhisk, and we are working together, and they are leading and bring their leadership and expertise to help bring serverless to a wider range of applications, developers, and industry than ever before. And Red Hat, who's been focused on open source and customer choice since the beginning, is investing in Knative to create a common building block for serverless on top of Kubernetes across the hybrid cloud. Absolutely wonderful working with Red Hat. Very excited to see this in the OpenShift function service.